Come on, everybody. Here we go.
Very funny. We now give you our brand new little sweetheart of swing.
You're listening to Stay Tuned, the show for animation lovers, recorded live on YouTube and also streaming on Patreon. Coming to you from Austin, Texas, I'm your host, Phil Machi. My original comics can be discovered at retailsunshine.com, and you can interact with me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook under the handles of both Retail Sunshine and Phil Machi. Also, you can keep up to date with the latest animation news by visiting this show at facebook.com/Stay Tuned Show. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Tonight, Stay Tuned welcomes the Pulitzer Prize-winning cartoonist Mike Peters to the show. All that, and you'll have a chance to thoughts, questions, and opinions with me for a live Q&A after the show. On tonight's show, my special guest is someone I've looked up to since childhood. His editorial cartoons and long-running comic strip, Grimmy, continue to entertain readers in hundreds of newspapers nationwide, and a 90s animated series based on his characters continues to air worldwide. He's one of my 3 major cartoonist inspirations, and it is my absolute honor to have him join me this evening. Mike Peters is here to give us the behind-the-scenes life of an award-winning cartoonist. But first, this.
Grimmy! Grimmy!
You don't fetch sticks, he won't lay dead. You take some car or you can instead. You don't do bad, or swim.
I want you too, Grimmy.
She's in love with him. This dog is real. Better lock the door, better hit the floor, better hide your head, that's real. Better go and shake, better come and shave, better stay in bed, that's him. Little Grimmy moves around the city, he's driving mad. You better watch your step, cause look out, it will be had. This dog is bad. He won't bark, he's gonna bite. And man, he gets in trouble on trash at night. But she can't stay. She's mother, said
Grimmy!
Mike Peters, welcome to Stay Tuned.
Well, it's a joy being here.
Thank you for joining me obviously today, and I will unabashedly tell you that you and your comics were absolutely paramount in my own personal comic strip schooling. Like, I feel like you were one of my mentors.
Great.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, how cool is that?
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing. I just got a letter today from an Army guy, and he sent a note, and he said, I have loved your work and simply wanted to thank you for all the days of putting a smile on my face. How fun is that?
Wow.
I mean, and I'm going to do a little cartoon for him, because, my God, it's amazing when you do a job and you enjoy it, and then you find out that people actually are out there, and then you hear from them, and that you've touched their lives in some way. It's great. It's
Absolutely.
Great.
I'm a real big fan of what I call mutual benefits.
Uh-huh.
If the thing that you love is also inspiring other people, then you just hit on something really good there. You know what I mean?
Oh yes, God, and truly, I feel very blessed. I live in a lovely house. My wife does all the heavy lifting. She pays the taxes and keeps me out of jail, and allows me to just sit there and try to come up with things that I think are funny. And I'm working on some idea that I've taken way too much time on, and I've changed the caption about 20 times trying to get the right caption, and then I walk away from it trying to forget about it, so I come back and read it like brand new, and then say, oh yeah, no, I like that. It's one of those jobs that when you start out, you're starting out like auditioning, but you're auditioning for the people that you're going to have for the rest of your life. I've been doing Look at Goose and Grimm since '84, so what is that? 33 years, and I was doing political cartoons before that, and people said to me, you should do a comic strip. And a couple of my friends, one Jeff McNally, who did Shoe,
Yeah.
and then another fabulous cartoonist named Doug Marlette was doing a strip. So the syndicates were saying, do a strip. And I said, God, I would like to do a strip. I mean, that sounds kind of fun. So I thought about the characters and stuff, and I can tell you about that later on if you ever care.
Sure.
And then I started to do the strip, and it caught on, and people liked it. And I was in then a bunch of newspapers, and I got to be about a month or two into it, And I said, "Now when does this stop?" Because see. It's like a marriage.
Oh, yes.
You wake up every day and you have to do it. And
yes.
I've been doing it every frigging day in my life for 33 years. And, and now I'm used to it. I get up and do the strip. It's like brushing your teeth. It's like something that you do, but I feel very blessed.
I remember being in 6th grade, the Scholastic people would come to our school, and and they had the book fairs and things like that. And I remember that was one of the times where I was looking through, and instead of looking at what my what my adults in my life would call real books, I was looking at picking up the comic strip books, and I actually still have on my bookshelf to this day, I'm looking at it right now, I still have The Postman Always Screams Twice.
Oh, God, yeah, I remember that book. Oh, my God, that's a riot.
And so that's still here. I've kept it all these years. I remember just how I read all the comic strips that were the staples, but some of them stayed with me, and again, yours was one of them. The Far Side was absolutely one of them.
Oh yeah.
And then of course Berkeley Breathes Outland and Opus. I mean,
Outland was great.
Yeah,
Outland was great. I remember the first time that Larson, he was published in our newspaper, the Dayton Daily News, and we were one of the first ones to get him. They asked him to come to make a speech at a theater in Dayton. And this was, forgive me if I'm wrong on the dates, but right around 1980, something like that. So they asked me to introduce him. And I said, oh, God, I'd love to introduce him. So the theater, it was a nice-sized theater, but it was jam-packed full of people. I mean, it was jam-packed. And I had been with him a little while during the day. He came up to my office and stuff, and we hung out. He had been doing the strip for like 10 years or 5 years, and he was just about to sign a new contract. So I was there, and I introduced him, and people went nuts. And then he came up with this slide, and he's standing up there, and he said, I don't really know what to say. And people started laughing, because, it's Gary Larson, for God's sake.
Right.
And he did Far Side, and I'm sitting in the audience, and he said, I don't know what you want me to do up here. And then just went on for about 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes of him saying this, people stopped laughing. They realized that he really didn't know what to do.
Oh, dear.
And so because I had introduced him, and this is a long 10 minutes, I mean, or maybe it was 5 minutes, but it was a long period of time,
But it felt like 10 minutes.
And so I stood up and I said, Gary, show the slides. And he goes, oh, the slides, okay. And he showed one slide, and people went freaking nuts. They were going nuts about it. And then he showed another slide, and then people went nuts about it. And then he started saying, well, this next slide, I thought of when I was in the bathroom, and I thought of this, and they showed the slide, and people went nuts. Oh, it was amazing. It was one of those amazing evenings. I couldn't believe it. But this was one of the first times that he had ever spoken to an audience. And
That's so funny.
They flew him into Dayton, but but he's a very shy, very introverted, sweet, lovely guy.
I can't say I'm surprised. I mean, so many of his comics were playing off of the scientist community, and he comes off, like in your description, very much like a scientist. That's a lot of scientists are that way.
Yes. And we were all crushed when he decided to stop working. But I think that he had, he had made a ton of money, and he could live now whatever he wanted to do. So he still lives in Seattle, I think, and he plays guitar in a band. I mean, not to make money, because he enjoys it.
Right.
And that's his life.
I'm also a comic strip artist, but I'm not somebody who is paid by a newspaper to do it, and so I don't have to do it every day,
Right. Right.
Which creates a very different relationship between the artist and the creation, because like you were describing earlier, when you're really trying to hammer out a caption and you got a deadline, that's a very different feeling than like, you know what I mean?
Well, it is. I mean, it is a different thing. When you don't have a deadline, you work through inspiration. You wait until you're inspired, and
yeah, you're right.
You can do something wonderful.
I remember reading some of the Grimmy strips. This was a set of strips where Grimmy had gone to the dog pound, and you did this thing where it wasn't a one and done strip. It was
right. It was a series.
It was a series, and that was really interesting to me. And it kind of broke my brain a little bit around what a comic strip was, because but to me, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, he's gonna hang out here he's gonna milk this for a while.
Right. And well, exactly. And I enjoy doing that. I haven't done that in some time, and I really should do it more, because I enjoy the process. And the process, of course, is you can do a series of some situation, but you have to remember, each cartoon is a cartoon within itself. So every cartoon has to be like a little gag. And if you don't have the gag, then people get pissed at you. If you do something and it's not really very funny, or it's a lame gag or something like that, people get mad at you. And Lynn Johnson, who used to do For Better or Worse, she was wonderful.
Love that strip.
I was just talking to her just recently. I did a little introduction to one of her books, and she said it. And I said, I am so honored that you asked me to do that. It was a joy. It was a joy doing that. But what she said was, when you do a storyline, at the end of each day, as a creator, you have to say, and then what happened? And then what happened?
Right.
See, something interesting. It's either a caption or some fascinating kind of insight into some thought, but it's something worth your while to end it with, and then the people are anxious about coming back and looking at the next day to see where you take it from there.
Yeah.
So it's very fun. You were telling me about animation, and
yes.
I had always wanted to be an animator when I first started cartooning. I had looked at Walt Disney and gone to all the movies and all that kind of stuff, and I thought, God, I would love to do animation. And when I was 13, my mom, who had a TV show in St. Louis for almost 25 years, and she sang and danced, and she would have these movie stars and people like that on her show. So it was very fun for me. So whenever anybody who I was excited about was coming on her show, I would take off school. I would just, take off school, and I would run down to the TV studio that she had, and then I would see John Wayne, or I'd see Martin and Lewis, or I would see these people that I loved as kids, and I was able to see them live. Well, this one time when I was about 13 and I was in high school, and my mom took me to meet a great cartoonist. He was a political cartoonist, and his name is Bill Malden. And if anybody out there would not know Bill Malden, Google Willie and Joe. He did a comic strip at the age of 18, and God, his work looked fabulous. At 18 years old, he was in the Army, and he was doing these comic strips daily, or every couple of days he would do a comic strip about what GIs were going through during World War II.
Wow.
And it was really, truly brilliant. And so when he was 18 or 19, he won a Pulitzer Prize for his great work that he was doing in World War II. And he did about 300 of these cartoons. And then after the war, he became a political cartoonist, and he was in my hometown in St. Louis. And so my mom knew I loved cartooning, and so she called up Malden, and she said, would it be okay if my son came up and met you? And so I went up and met him, and at that point then I realized, I want to do this. I want to do like Bill Malden doing political cartoons. cartoons.
Oh, wow.
So I did political cartoons for about, I'm still doing, I still do political cartoons.
That's right.
If you get on Grimmy.com, Grimmy.com, you can see all of the cartoons I do, the comic strip and then the political cartoons. I used to do like 5 or 6 political cartoons a week, and then the comic strip, which was 7 days a week. And when I reached a certain age, I thought, oh shoot, this is way too hard. Way too hard. I was in like 700 or 800 newspapers around as far as the comic strip, and so I slowed down on my political cartoons. So now I just do like 2 a week, but I spend all week thinking and worrying and trying to do a good political cartoon, but talking about animation. So I started doing the comic strip, and then about 10 years into it, the producer of the Garfield show called me and said we would be interested in trying to sell CBS a Mother Goose and Grimm show. And I said, God, I would love to do that. I mean, you know, it was just a treat. You've done animation yourself, correct?
I've done a bit. I've done some in college, and then I'm working on animating the comic strip that I've been working on for the last 10 years. I'm doing my own animation for it.
Oh, that's great. Oh, I love that. I'm dying to see that.
Oh, thank you.
So CBS picked it up and then started sending me for almost 2 years out to Los Angeles. And then I would get a chance to help write the shows. A fabulous guy named Mark Evanier, who did most of the Garfield shows, and we started writing the Mother Goose and Grimm shows. And so I would go out and we would talk for long periods of time, and we would write down little ideas, and they would turn into shows. And it was a dream. It was a dream. It was one of those things that I loved. I get the chance to meet all the people who were doing the voiceover and the dialogue work, and a lot of the people you actually know by seeing their faces, but they were also doing dialogue, like Phyllis Diller and great actors. And, and so they were making a little extra money by doing dialogue stuff. But I had a chance to be able to meet with them, and then meeting the animators, and that was great. I don't know whether you know it or not, but one of the guys who did the animation, he was right out of college, and he was the guy who invented SpongeBob.
Oh, you mean Steven Hillenburg?
Yes, Steven Hillenburg. Isn't that a riot?
Wow.
And he was a young guy, and boy, I would love to try to talk to him sometime. If anybody out there knows his, I know he's been ill, but I would love to be able to call him or talk to him or email him or something.
Oh, I'm sure Steven Hillenburg would definitely talk with you. I'm sure.
I would love that. I would love that, because I haven't seen him for 20 years or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
But no, it was a joy. It was a joy doing that.
That's so good to hear.
And then seeing the animators animating Grimmy and Mother Goose, and then the different characters. And then if any new character would have to come along, I would be sitting in Los Angeles, and I'd be doing the drawings of whatever characters it is, the female dog or cat or just characters, you know, guys who are robbing the house or stuff like that. It was just a hoot.
So
it was just a
that
hoot.
is awesome to hear, because I actually did grow up watching Grimmy. I do remember watching it. And I have been looking painstakingly, Mike, for a collected works on Blu-ray, and there is nothing to be found.
Well, guess what? We have just gotten the rights from the people who owned the rights before.
Was it Nelvana?
So, Nelvana, yeah. So we just got the rights back from them. And so we are going to be putting together a 1 or 2 years worth of cartoons.
That's amazing news. I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, because I was reading that, you know, I didn't realize it only had like 16 episodes.
Yes, it was stupid. It was stupid because what had happened, we were on CBS, and then all of a sudden Disney bought ABC, and they took off a bunch of cartoons, and then when the cartoons were taken off ABC, then they were taken off CBS's things too. So we were hurt by Disney coming and then starting their own Saturday morning shows.
Oh, how strange!
And then that hurt us, but because we were doing well. I mean, we were doing great, but we had to stop because of what Disney was doing.
So does that mean that right around the time that Grimmy stopped airing, that Garfield would have stopped also?
Garfield had been on CBS, and he had stopped doing the Garfield show, and then we came in after Garfield went off, and then we took up from where Garfield left off.
Okay. I was reading it's still viewable in other countries.
Yes, yeah, I know. Isn't that crazy? And then Mark Veneer has been asking, boy, I would love to be doing up more shows, and so we need to find backers and stuff. But yes, we have gotten the old shows, and we're trying to get people interested in some new shows.
Oh my gosh, that is so good to hear. I would love to see you back in animation with Grimmy. That is
I would love doing it. I love the process, and of course, I was putting a lot of my time and stuff into it. But it was a hoot.
But see, it's great to know that you were involved in the series.
Oh yeah.
Because you say oh yes, and people would assume that. But here's the thing that I was like shattered to believe as I started growing up. Not everybody is as involved in their creations when they go to become something beyond just a comic strip. You know what I mean?
Well, I was loving the process because it was something that I wanted to do early on. I wanted to do when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And so having the chance to be able to, I can remember so many weeks I was going out to Los Angeles and then redoing some of the storyboards that I thought, it could be better. I could make them better. And so I would redo certain storyboards that I thought could be more fun. And of course, that takes a long time. You know that. I mean, you know what storyboards take.
And then you watch them and they're over with. I mean, then you're like, oh, that was all of 30 seconds worth of content.
I know. It's crazy.
That's probably like my least favorite thing about being a cartoonist is when I show somebody what I've finished working on, and I've been working on it for like a month, and they glance at it for less than a minute, and they nod as if that was all they needed to consume it. It just blows me away.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah. Funny is not the word I would have chosen.
They were doing, it was the Film Roman group I was working with, and they would do the storyboards, and then they'd send them out to China, and then the Chinese would be taking those and then making them into animated cartoons.
Yeah, they would draw all the in-betweens.
I think they still do it like that.
That's still the process, yeah.
But I loved it, and I was dying to go out to China and meet those guys, but then I never could. But it was a hoot. I loved going out there, and they always talked about at the time. People were always amazed that I was going and doing this stuff. It sounded so exotic, and I'm working with an animation studio, and then being
great.
There with all the voices.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds exotic, but then I would get on the red eye at around 11 o'clock on Friday night. So I had to fly from Los Angeles to Atlanta, Georgia, and then get on a plane to Sarasota, where I was living. And so I would make it and get there around 5 o'clock in the morning, okay? And then the plane didn't leave for Sarasota until like 8 or 9, something like that.
Yeah.
So I would find a cleaning lady, and she'd give me a trash bag, and I'd blow it up and then tie the end of the trash bag.
Okay.
And then I would take the trash bag over into some corner of the Atlanta airport that wasn't well lit, and I'd lay down, I'd put my head on this trash bag, and then just kind of go to sleep for a couple of hours until my plane was supposed to take off. And so I would say, it sounds so exotic, but that's what I remember about this thing. I would always be laying on some trash bag somewhere in a dark spot at the Atlanta airport until my plane for Sarasota would take off.
I actually am not surprised at all, because I've read similar stories about people in animation and how they'll have to sleep on the office couch, or
Oh God, yes.
All these stories.
It's crazy,
Yeah,
Isn't that amazing?
One of the things I explain to people is it's not a glamorous life. What they're seeing is the beautiful creative result of a lot of solitary confinement to one's office.
No, exactly. Well, and that's for sure true about comic strip guys. There was a thing in Vanity Fair. The son of the guy who did Prince Valiant, the comic strip Prince Valiant,
yes.
classic comic strip.
Yes.
Well, his son lived in Connecticut, and this was in the 50s and 60s. So it was at a time when all of these great classic cartoonists like Al Cap and people like that were living in Connecticut, and they could drive into New York and meet the editors or do whatever they had to do. But he was talking about all of these cartoonists and what their life was like. And what their life was like was exactly what you were talking about. It's so solitary. They're at their drawing board like 90% of the day, and they're sitting there creating this magic, doing buildings and planes and
Right.
and people fighting and stuff. And then they would be using Polaroid cameras to take a picture of themselves, of their wife or someone, take a picture of them, falling backwards. And then they'd take this picture and then draw a man falling backwards. It was usually them, them
That's right.
doing the stuff. But it was true for all the animators too. I mean, it's all the same. It's
Yeah,
all
we
the
are
same.
all animators and comic strip artists. We are all actors just living through our drawings, essentially.
Right. And we feel blessed. I mean, we feel blessed that we're able to do something that we enjoy.
Yes.
We could be selling aluminum siding outside. We could be electricians or something, or digging ditches or something. But we're able to sit into a room and, God, we're able to have fun coming up with something that we think might be funny or interesting, and then trying to duplicate it on a piece of paper, and then shading it and stuff. That's a dream. That's a dream. I can't imagine anything better,
And I agree, by the way. That's, as a kid, that was my main motivation with drawing, was I wanted characters that were my own characters, that if I wanted to put an idea out there, I would have those characters in my back pocket, and just
of course,
to be able to create through that.
Of course.
It's just
Of course.
You're right. There's nothing like it. I have to ask you, how did you come up with the characters of Grimmy and Mother Goose and Attila, of course?
Sure. Well, I told you that the syndicates have been calling me, and I've been working as an editorial cartoonist for 10 or 15 years, and I was syndicated, and they knew my work and stuff like that, and so they were coming to me and asking, that I should do this, and so I kind of thought, maybe it's time for me to do this. Now, you got to understand, I really didn't understand what it was all about. I didn't really know. I mean, I thought, God, it would be fun doing a comic strip and having my stuff be in the newspaper and people be laughing and then seeing this. I didn't really realize that I had to do it every frigging day for the rest of my life. I didn't realize. I didn't realize that. But what I did was I took some of my favorite political cartoons and I put them on the floor, and I took about 20 or 30 of them. I went through all the stuff that I had done, and I thought, well, it would show me a little bit about what I like. So what I found was I enjoy drawing animals, and I love doing Disney characters, putting across certain ideas for political cartoons. I thought, well, okay, then what I should do is do animals, not people, and then I thought I would do fantasy characters because this was showing me that I enjoy doing fantasy.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, and so I grew up in St. Louis, in a town called Dogtown. And I'll tell you sometime why it's called Dogtown, but it's Riot. But I always thought if ever I get a cartoon, I'd like to have a dog in it because I enjoy dogs all my life. Dogs are funny. Dogs are not like cats. Cats can sit there, and when you come into the room, they'll be sitting like they're a bronze statue. They'll be sitting looking at you, or they'll be asleep, and everything will be in a perfect place. They're designed great,
Yes.
But dogs are funny. They run funny. They have their tongue out. They lick themselves at the wrong time, and stuff like that. They're just funny. And so I always thought, if I'm ready down the comic store, I like it to be about dog. I mean, one of the characters would be a dog. But what this showed me, though, those things that I had on the floor, was I enjoyed doing fantasy. So I thought, well, I have a dog with some sort of fantasy characters. And so I thought about Robinson Crusoe had a dog. And so I did a Robinson Crusoe character, and I had this little dog. I love bull terriers, so I did the bull terrier. But he lives on a desert island, and I had a lot of coconut jokes. And so I thought, no, it needs to be more than that. And so then I started just looking for any character I could find that dealt with fantasy. And I had gotten this Mother Goose book to look through it to see the different poems that she had in there, Tom Thumb or stuff like that.
Right.
And I saw one of the cartoons that had Mother Goose looking like a character that I had done. I had done this old lady. I used to go to Washington. I still love going to Washington. And there was a lady there who used to wake up in front of the White House. And she lived there for 30 or 35 years. And she lived in a cardboard box. And I thought, God, it'd be great doing the dog with this lady that lived in the cardboard box. And I could do lots of political stuff. But see, I was already doing 5 political cartoons a week on the political side. So I didn't want to do that. So I put that on the side. But then I drew Mother Goose, and she looked like this little lady that I drew. And I thought, you know, I could do Mother Goose. And then she could be a writer. You know, she could write poems and stuff like that.
Right.
And then she would have this dog. The dog is kind of gross, and he eats out of trash cans and licks himself and drinks out of toilets and stuff. And then I thought of the name Grimm, Mother Goose and Grimm, because Grimm brothers are, you know, Grimm.
Right, right.
And that's how that came about.
Where did Attila come from then?
Well, and then it wasn't until I was doing the strip for about 3 or 4 months, something like that, that I realized I needed to have more characters. And we had cats, and I thought I would do a cat. And so then one of my cats was named Attila, and I thought, well, that's great. I will name a cat Attila, this little cat that is afraid of everything and stuff. And so that's how I came up with Attila. And
Wow.
and then the other characters came along, you know. So it was great. I mean, you know, it's really fun.
I have been holding on to this question since for well, when I tell you the question, you'll know how long I've been holding on to it, because it is an old question. And look, I would never presume to tell another artist how to do what they're doing. So this is
No.
This is merely as a fan of your work. I never understood, and I was so disappointed when you redesigned Attila to be a skinny cat.
Well, oh, you wanted the fat cat. You wanted Attila to be round and stuff,
well,
right?
And here's the reason why. I just thought it was like Grimmy's he's not like a twig, but he's a little bit on the, like, if you put him next to the old Attila, they would make the number 10.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It makes 10.
Yeah.
Makes the number 10.
Right. So to me, that's perfect. It's like a Laurel and Hardy kind of a thing. You know what I mean?
Okay. Well, that's what. Then I will start I'll bring another fat cat into it. That's great. I will, because I've heard this a number of times, and maybe it's time for me to do that. So I will, you wonderful boy.
But
that is great.
Well, but I'm curious though, like what was there a real life inspiration that made that happen?
No. A real life inspiration. I was just doing the cat that I had, who was just a powder puff of a cat. The reason why I made him skinny was because I enjoyed drawing them two together. When the dog was standing there and the cat was kind of tall, it made it an interesting little design thing. That's the reason why I did it.
I'm really interested into like the logistics, because if you're saying it had to do with the way they were positioned on the panel together.
Oh yeah, sure. It was mainly the way it was positioned. When I had the round cat, and then Grimm was, I didn't have him standing at the time. He would always be sitting there like a dog, so it was always like a roundish kind of dog and a round cat, and I wanted to make it a little bit the character, one of the characters be kind of tall and skinny, and the other kind of roundish, you know.
So that's perfect. That's perfect, because so you're basically saying exactly what I just said a second ago, which was the
right.
I just never thought of Grimmy as the round character. That's what's so funny about that.
Well, you know, I didn't have him standing up until about 10 years into the thing, because I really wanted him to be more of the dog. So now what I do when I have Grimm drinking out of the toilet, knocking over trash cans, more of a dog kind of thing, I'll have him walking on 4 feet. But then other times I'll have him standing on 2 feet, and he's sitting drinking something from a bar or something like that. You know, so I have him 2 different ways. But that's why I did it about the cat.
That's really interesting. That's the kind of thing that I guess maybe only cartoonists are interested in, because I always thought it was a funny anecdote when I heard that.
Oh, you are so cute. You're so fun. I'm dying to meet you sometime.
Oh yeah, well we're both from Ohio, you know. My hometown is Solon, Ohio. It's a suburb of Cleveland.
Solon? No, I've never been to Solon. But that's your hometown?
That's my hometown. And then I went to college at Bowling Green State in Bowling Green, Ohio.
Bowling Green. Bowling Green. I love Bowling Green.
Yeah.
I went there to hear Malden make a speech when he was still doing the political cartoons.
Oh, see, that's cool. But see, the thing you said about Attila is interesting to me, because I always thought it was interesting that Charles Schulz hated drawing the shoes on his characters.
Oh, he hated drawing shoes, really?
Yeah, and I read that once, and I'm like, what a funny little anecdote is that Charles Schulz hated drawing shoes on his characters in Peanuts, and that's just funny.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, that is funny.
Isn't that funny?
So, but the same thing with what you said about having Grimmy be more of a round character and having Attila be more of a thin character. Like it absolutely makes sense because I know what you're saying as far as the structure of the comic. I totally get that.
Oh, you're amazing. You're amazing. Well, this is great.
Before I forget, you've got a new book out right now called Cats Are Light Sleepers, right?
Yes.
What can we expect?
You can buy it. You can get on Grimmy.com.
Okay.
And you can buy it right there on the screen. They'll send it right to you.
Great. And what can people expect from that? Is it just a collection of strips, or is there something else going on?
I plan to do a thicker book coming up in this next year, where I'm going to be having little stories about me and my pet, and coming from Dogtown, and that'll have some illustrations besides just the strips. Little stories about my pets along with the strips, and that'll be coming up in about a half year, something like that. I'm working on it right now.
Oh, great.
But the one you're talking about is just all Mother Goose and Grimm cartoons from the 1991 to 93, something like that. Those are the strips that were my favorites from those 3 or 4 years.
That's good. I look forward to seeing that. And one other thing I have to mention, I have to ask about Ralph, this character that has seemingly taken over your website.
Oh, yes. Well, Ralph is a bull terrier, and I realized that Grimm didn't really have a buddy. He didn't have a dog buddy. He had the cat, but the cat wasn't really his buddy. You know, it was dog and cat kind of stuff. And so I tried a number of different dogs. In fact, I found the sketchbook that I was just developing Ralph at the time. And in fact, that might be a good thing to have in a book sometime.
I was just gonna say that. I was gonna say you need something called The Road to Ralph or something like that.
Oh no, that's great. Great idea. Oh, that's a great idea. Because I keep all my sketchbooks, and I just ran across one of the books has a bunch of early drawings that I was trying to develop Ralph on. And in fact, really, I've got books of when I was first trying to develop Grimm and then Mother Goose. And that would be all fun stuff to show also.
That would be a really great book to see all of the behind the scenes. And
that's great.
I have to tell you, I watched an interview with you on YouTube earlier.
Yeah.
It was very reassuring for me because you were showing your work pages, which are like a bunch of really tiny comic strips. And that's the same thing that I do too when I'm making comics. I make a bunch of tiny comic strips too.
Well, that's great. See, it's kind of amazing. When I come up with ideas, often I just have to start with little visuals that I might have.
Like a thumbnail.
Just little thumb sketches.
Yeah.
Little thoughts of maybe Grimm is at a trash can or Grimm is at a toilet, and then what he would be doing. And so doing these little sketches is what helps me, coming up with ideas.
That's so cool.
All right, you wonderful thing.
Well,
I've got to go. My wife is giving me the look. So
Mike, that's all right. Thank you so much for taking some time to spend with me today, talking about your creations, and I really appreciate it.
I love that. I love that. I love talking to you. We can talk more. Okay.
Okay. Well, I'll keep you in my phone.
Okay. Thank you, man.
Thank you, Mike. You take care.
Bye.
Bye. That was the end credits score for the Mother Goose and Grimm animated series, composed by the late Ron Grant. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode. Special thanks go out to Mike Peters once again for joining us here on the show. Be sure to visit Grimmy.com for his comics and books, and be on the lookout soon for the DVD release of the Mother Goose and Grimm animated series. Of course, thanks to all of you listening in live on YouTube. And say, if you enjoyed the show and would like to listen anytime, why don't you join me over on Patreon at patreon.com/Phil Machi and become a subscriber today. Not only are there cool rewards, but you can also stream this show anytime you like, which means never missing an episode. I've been Phil Machi. You've been a wonderful audience. And until next time, keep those eyeballs peeled, those ears open, and be sure to stay tuned. Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, is episode 21 in the rough before I do the edit and upload the final audio this Friday on Patreon. But thank you for listening to the rough cut, and we still have about 15 minutes, so if you have any questions about Mother Goose and Grimm or Mike Peters or the animated series or books that are about dogs, throw your questions on the screen, and I will address as many of them as we have time for. And Mike, if you're here watching, thank you very much for that wonderful, insightful interview. If you feel like chatting and you have a little chat window button somewhere on the screen, you are welcome to say hi and all that good stuff. But if that's not working for you, that's fine. I still appreciate you watching anyway. So thank you for that. And thanks to everybody new who stopped by tonight. I got some new subscribers. I appreciate that. And of course, I have to thank, before I forget, I have to thank the subscribers who are my Rubber Hose subscribers. And what are those? Well, there are different tiers, levels of subscribers when you go to Patreon, and one of them is called Rubber Hose. And one of the perks of being a Rubber Hose subscriber is that I thank you personally every week on this show. So thank you to Victoria Goodman for being a Rubber Hose subscriber. Thanks so much. And thanks to all, of course, the other subscribers as well. You guys are all important as well. There are different tiers starting as low as $5. $5 allows you to listen to this show. And there's new episodes every month, well, every week. So be sure to do that and share this with your friends, of course. Please do that. And Halloween is coming up.